Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Dwarves led by Grandpa Gromby and the Warriors of Chaos, who are going to be led by the Warp Chicken. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So when I was building this army initially in the selection screen, I was kind of like, alright, I'm going to play a little bit defensive, I'm going to use the Goblobber to force in the Warriors of Chaos, and from there I'm going to kind of gun them down with Thunders, and then I'm going to be sending in my relatively low tier infantry. So I mostly have miners in the front line with blasting charges just to deal with marauders and get a little bit of initial damage and basically just be a damage sponge. And then from there I was going to follow up with Dwarf Warriors, so really going with that dwarvish onion build. And then lastly I was going to be sending in the Longbeard, so really hoping I could like soften up Chosen and Chaos Warriors with great weapons and things like that. Alas, my opponent threw a bit of a wrench in my strategy. So as far as his army goes, well, you guys can see it right in front of you. He does have 3 hell cannons. So suddenly, I thought I was going to have the advantage with artillery. If he had 1 hell cannon, I was like, all right, maybe I can trade and maybe my Goblobber can kill his cannon crew. But no, that is not going to work now. He does have 3 hell cannons here, and these things hit like absolute trucks against dwarves. And I was very happy I didn't go elite. I was kind of thinking, I was like, you know what, maybe I'm going to go with like mass hammers and iron breakers and try an elite dwarven army. And if I did, this would have just been game over within like a matter of like 45 seconds. So he does have the 3 hell cannons, definitely going to be a little bit dicey, but just a bit of analysis of my army. Miners in the front line, blasting charges, going to absorb things. The Thunders would then, fire at the infantry as they advance, fall back behind the Dwarf Warriors. And, of course, I do have the Runesmiths on the flanks as well. Runesmiths, very, very good. Rune of Wrath and Ruin can slow down Chaos Knights. It's pretty good for wearing down Chosen as well. I mean, it doesn't do massive damage, but it really helps in that long, grindy game. Runesmiths are just absolute beasts. And on top of that, we do have the Hammer of Characteras in both of them, which lowers weapon damage by 25% and melee attack by 44. So if a group of Chosen come in, I think their melee attack is actually like 46 or 44. I can't quite remember. So it'll put them down to 0, which is very, very nice. So we got 2 of those, and we do have Grandpa Gromby. He just has his Flash Bomb, none of his fancy items. He's not a bad choice. I mean, he's a good duelist. He's very powerful. Flash Bomb can be pretty game-changing if you can catch an enemy lord out. So he's definitely ready to party. We got the Goblobber, 1 group of Giant Slayers in the back, and 2 groups of Longbeards on the flank. So I'd like to put the Longbeards here because, number 1, they have charge defense. So if enemy cav are coming, you can, fan out and defend against the cav. And, they can put up a good fight against Chaos Warriors. Chaos Warriors do win 1-1, if I'm not mistaken, but the Longbeards definitely can do some work if supported by Runesmiths and if they're in a bit of a secondary engagement. That's my whole army here. For my opponent, he does have a Marauder Horseman with Throwing Axes here. Definitely pretty good against, dwarves in general. The Throwing Axes do pretty well. If I wanted to meme a little bit and bring Gyrocopters, he has an answer. Just a very, very safe pick there. For his front line, he does have Chaos Marauders. He's got 3 groups of those, going to be absorbing the initial damage or flanking up and around my army. Definitely good for either of those purposes. He does have the Warp Chicken with Final Transmutation, so he's just going to be burning down Grombrindal. He'll probably just cast this like 2 or 3 times on Gromby and be able to kill him, or at least bring him very low. And then Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons, also a very solid choice. I mean, they have better stats than Longbeards, 36, 32, 38. Decent charge bonus of 26 on those guys compared to a charge bonus of 16 on the Longbeards, so definitely not bad. But really the core of his army, or the pinnacle, the main aspect of his army is going to be the triple Hell Cannon, with one of them actually being the Regiment of Renown, the Soul of Damnation. He does have some Hounds in the back, as well as Marauder Horsemen with Throwing Axes, and that's going to be it. So the Hell Cannons are raining in. The first hit, absolutely devastating. It literally takes away half the health of my Thunders. So typically Thunders, I should have put them in a straight line formation, but typically you keep them in a box so they can turn faster. That's why you always see people using missile units in relatively tight boxes, because they turn quicker and they can fire at approaching targets a little bit more efficiently. But in this situation, you probably want to spread them out. So that was a big mistake on my part. And on that same note, I'm going to be returning fire, so you can see I'm shooting some goblins at him. So the first goblins, I make contact with that back Chaos Warrior. Looks like a bit of a swing and a miss there, so unfortunately I do miss those guys. And the Hell Cannon's continuing to rain fire. Let's go ahead and see where they're shooting. It looks like they're going, it's like the arc is so crazy on those things. Is he manually aiming that? It was like, that one was like up and down, up and down. But I don't think he is, because he's moving around other units. But anyways, the Goblobber are getting some good value against the Chaos Warriors. The first of the Miners are going to be advancing through the swamps, dropping some of those hot blasting charges. And the Thunder is also providing some Overwatch fire here on the Chaos Warriors. So trying to work those guys down, because these Marauders are going to get sandwiched pretty hard by these blasting charges. So here comes the first volley, just doing massive damage to these guys, lighting that tree on fire. That's actually kind of a cool effect there. And the Thunders, the other group, is going to be shooting at the Chaos Warriors as well, so just using blasting charges. And the Miners are going to charge in to meet these guys who are pretty staggered there from the blasting charge volley. So didn't do much damage to these ones. These guys, however, did take quite a bit of damage, but the Warp Chicken is going to push in now. He's got his KFC drumstick here, and he's going to be dunking on some of these dwarves. So definitely not fun for the Dawi in the front line. And the Hell Cannon's still doing a bunch of damage, even though, yeah, they're still getting in there, doing some damage to my Dwarf Warriors. But I saw a bit of an opportunity here. So I did see that these Chaos Warriors are very beat up. They're taking Thunder Fire. There's a bit of a pocket. So I was like, all right, I'm going to feign an attack on the Warp Chicken. I'm going to go in. Unfortunately, it was right when he uses the Final Transmutation. So I'm going to be taking a lot of damage on these Giant Slayers, which are expensive. But I was like, I'm going to attack Warp Chicken. And from there, I'm going to push up and through the middle and try and get back to these 3 Hell Cannons, which he wasn't really defending, which is fair because typically Dwarves aren't going to be able to outflank you and get into your back line. So I do have one group of Thunders here, trying to shoot Chaos Warriors. They don't really have the best arc of fire. A very good final transmutation going down. It hits a ton of my troops, does a lot of damage. You can see the bounce of power going in my opponent's favor a little bit as his Hell Cannons. I mean, yeah, he's definitely getting some good value against these Dwarf Warriors here. So the Mission Impossible Slayers are now pushing through. So Giant Slayers pretty quick. They got 40 speed. So I'm just kind of bull rushing through here. I'm like, if he wants to stop me with Sarthorael, that's fine. I can attack him a little bit. But man, the Warp Chicken is a tough one to lock down. Oh, we do also break off some of his Chaos Marauders, but the Hell Cannon's continuing to just rain some hot fire here. Very expensive. I mean, despite the damage they're doing, they really have to get a lot of kills to pay for like that much of a Hell Cannon investment. In the back, you can see his Hounds they try to get on my Gobblobber back here, as well as his Marauder Horseman crew. He did get back there. I had some Miners with Blasting Charges kind of defending. I think they fended off the Hounds, so the Hounds did actually take quite a beating and ran. And then he cycled in with the Marauder Horseman, so just trying to overwhelm me. Miners not the toughest defenders, but at least they have high armor, so they should be able to hold for a little while. So the Slayers still pushing back, trying to get to the Hell Cannons. Of course, he keeps attacking them, so the AI of the Slayers then tugs, and I have to re-click them and send them back there. So very good stuff from my opponent. He bunches me up a little bit, but Warp Chicken is also taking some heavy damage there. So he's a very tough chicken to crack, so definitely want to get him down pretty quick. My opponent does also detach some Chaos Warriors with great weapons, and he does have a couple troops in the back who have broken. He's probably going to be sending them in to help because he really needs these Hell Cannons. So he needs to send these guys back here like ASAP, and you can see he's just bull rushing through. So I actually use a Flash Bomb on these guys, and they only have 7 speed, but it looks like they're moving a lot faster than 7 speed. I don't know what was going on there. Grombrindal trying to hold them back to allow the Slayers to get onto the artillery crew, and now you can see the Chaos style. We're going to get crump slapped here by these Giant Slayers. So hopefully they'll be able to take down the Soul of Damnation. I do slip through another group of Dwarf Warriors here, and they were taking so much Hell Cannon fire. I thought they might break, so I used Grombrindal has no fear. So my entire army is unbreakable right now, except these guys. They're broken. They're probably broken earlier. But just sending all these resources back here, trying to shut down the Hell Cannons. Bounce of power a little bit in my opponent's favor. The frontline fight here is just an absolute savagery. You can see that the Dwarf Warriors with the Miners fighting a bit of an uphill battle, but through strength of numbers as well as the Runesmith supporting, you can see that one Miner just being tossed by a friendly Blasting Charge most likely. It looks like they are working through these Chaos Warriors, getting them very low, and the Runes of Wrath and Ruin, plus the Hammer of Karak Draz, and the fact that they're all unbreakable, definitely helping a little bit. On the far side, similar situation, Chaos Warriors and Longbeards fighting against these, or not Chaos Warriors, Longbeards and the Runesmith fighting against these Chaos Warriors. But this is really kind of the epicenter of the battle. The most important stuff is going on back here. We are able to break off one of the Hell Cannons. The Soul of Damnation crew pretty much all but dead, but my opponent with a pretty veteran play here is going to detach his cannon crews. I think he does that later. Maybe, yeah, I think he might have done it with this one crew. He told them to drop their artillery piece and run back, so he's not going to lose his crew, therefore he can just come back. And the Slayers aren't going to attack the cannon. They're always going to attack the crews and, the cannon with it. But yeah, you can see here, I rotate over to the other Hell Cannon, and now these Chaos Warriors are definitely getting chopped up, but I'm running low. I only have 9 Giant Slayers left. There's Chaos Warriors back here, but I'm getting some really good fire with my Gobblobber in the back, shooting at the Chaos Warriors fighting back here, definitely netting some decent value. But these Dwarf Warriors also holding pretty well, considering they are fighting the Warp Chicken and Chaos Warriors, so definitely proud of those guys. And for the first time in the battle, we do pull ahead in the Bounce of Power. We're able to kind of, shut down the Hell Cannon barrage, which if it were shooting right now, just imagine like 2 or 3 Hell Cannons just shooting into a blob of like low-tier Dwarf infantry. That would be absolutely brutal. So Grandpa Gromby is helping lead the charge. He's a little bit hidden in there, kind of a little bit of a short guy. He's trying his best. He's karate chopping some of those guys, definitely doing some good work. He does have the support of the Runesmith, who drops the Rune of Negation. And the Dwarves are able to break through the front line of Chaos. So the Chaos Warriors do get buckled, and the rest of the Dwarves are going to be advancing back towards the Hell Cannons, which is really kind of, like I said, the most important aspect of the battle. So he does have some Marauder Horsemen and Throwing Axes. They are able to break off my Dwarf Warriors here, and the Warp Chicken just dunking all over him with all over those Dwarfs with his drumstick here. And he's going to be charging in. He's so tough for the Dwarves to lock down. I mean, Dragonback Slayers are probably one of the best answers against him, because he has massive missile resist, so Thunders aren't really going to do a whole lot of anything against him. Grombrindal can duel him, but the problem with Gromby is he just gets knocked over so much. So if my opponent is effectively cycle charging, I can't really retaliate very well with Grombrindal. So if we take a look at the battlefield overall, in the back we do have some of the Chaos Warhounds still trying to get into the cookie jar, but I left plenty of Miners back here and actually get some blasting charges on these doggos, so I actually feel a little bit bad for these guys, but they're getting blasting charged right here, and those charges are just so useful against like Marauders and lightly armored troops, and even against things like Chosen, they do have a bit of a staggering effect, so they can kind of slow them down a little bit, which is quite nice. So we blast those doggos. We do have the Gobblobber online with all 3 of its artillery pieces. We also have a nice little Overwatch position here in the hill. We're able to shoot those Chaos Warriors. We get a Rune of Wrath and Ruin as well. So they're probably going to get picked apart before they get back into the main fight. But my opponent, I believe, did get another final transmutation while we were looking at the other side of the battlefield. It did huge damage to Gromby. It basically killed the Runesmith and sent a lot of my Dwarf Warriors running, which was really tough. And now it's basically Grombrindal fighting the Warp Chicken. I mean, Gromby on paper should win that duel, but the Warp Chicken with effective cycle charging can just run back and forth all day, and his mass is going to keep knocking over Grombrindal, which is so tough. But right here, I do get a couple decent attacks. He's down to 2,800 HP. I'm at about 1,100. Looks like there are some, the Soul of Damnation does have its crew running back, but they get dunked on by the Warp Chicken. And actually, the Warp Chicken knocks them into these Dwarf Warriors. So these guys wading through the swamp are coming back in. I was so happy. I was like, yes, Grombrindal has some reinforcements, and they're going to easily be able to cut apart this crew, which is finally going to shut down the Hell Cannon threat, as well as my Thunder. So the Thunder's sitting over here in the bushes, wavering, unfortunately. I'm not sure why, or what's causing them to waver. I mean, they're really beat up, but they're shooting at the Hell Cannon here to shut that one down as well. So some of my Dwarf Warriors and Longbeards kind of rallying, got some Miners coming in as well. Very, very even battle at this point. My opponent has re-secured his position in the Balance of Power, and Grombrindal is in a very, very bad state now. I mean, he has some Dwarf Warriors, but he's really beat up, guys. He has 650 HP. Thankfully, these are only Marauders, and Grombrindal is going to be able to chop some of those guys, but the Warp Chicken is just all over Gromby, just like flying in with his turkey wings and just dunking on him, and it's really tough again with the mass. I wish they would give something to like lords like Grombrindal to keep them from getting knocked over, so that if a big lord like Kolek is running in on them, who already has a mass advantage, can run through infantry, at least Grombrindal can like stand and like take that charge and retaliate and give some damage back. I think that would be really nice. So Longbeard's here, just going to be piling in. Miners coming as well. It looks like he does have one Hell Cannon online, so he did get it back online. And I saw that, I was like, oh man, these guys, these Chaos Dwarves were like hiding in the swamps here. So I sent some Miners in. These guys will be going as well. In the back, my Goblobber's out of ammunition, but something that's really nice is I do have a ton of Miners. I have like a full group of 75, but guys, look at the Bounce of Power. Massive advantage for the Warriors of Chaos, despite the fact they don't have much. I mean, the Warp Chicken's pretty healthy, but really, I mean, Grombrindal has 400 HP. I mostly have Dwarf Warriors and Miners and like low-tier troops everywhere. He's got a couple groups of Marauder Horsemen on the wing, so 22 over here. And does he have anything else? Doesn't really look like it. We're just down to the wire here, just an insanely close game. So Grombrindal's coming back in. He does get knocked over again, which is unfortunate. You know, Sarthorael has 2,400 HP. He's unbreakable too, so even if the rest of the Warriors of Chaos break, which isn't much, it's just Marauder Horsemen, he will keep fighting, so he could potentially pull out the game that way. So these Dwarves, looks like they were kind of working on the Hell Cannon. We do finally break it. The other one is getting dunked on as well by these Miners, so they're doing a pretty good job here, you know, cutting apart the crew, and without the crew, of course, it won't be able to do anything. So at least it's shut down for now, although the Terror, so you know, Longbeards are immune to psychology, but the Miners aren't, so there could potentially be some terror routing. Dwarf Warriors are also not immune to psychology. Grombrindal decided to pull back. I think he actually got punted by the Warp Chicken, so he actually got like knocked over here, and he's going to be charging back in. Yeah, because there's not really much of a reason for me to run, but he does charge in. Unfortunately, he does get stuck on the Hell Cannon, so he decides to just path right through the Hell Cannon. It's pretty funny, right? Like, he's just like can't figure out how to get around it. So he's charging in a little bit ahead. He does get a Karate Chop, does about 400 damage, so I was very happy with that. But then Warp Chicken comes in and staffs him and puts him down to -3, 8 leadership. He's teetering on the point of wavering. Definitely very tough stuff here. In the back, my opponent does have a group of Marauder Horsemen, so they're able to shut down the Goblobber. But the Goblobber was out of ammo anyway, so it's not really a huge deal. I do detach my Thunders because they're not going to be terribly useful against the Warp Chicken, and I was like, I'm just going to try and finish off anything I can in the back, so we're going to be going after the Marauder Horsemen. Unfortunately, over here, Grombrindal has 20 HP. He is very, very low, although we did do some decent damage to Sarthorael. His melee defense is actually pretty good at 40, but the Miners and the Longbeards and some of these other Dwarves were able to do some decent work against the Warp Chicken, the Warp King. He's definitely not the king of the Warp. But yeah, they're able to do some decent damage. The Thunders do fall back here, and they're able to poke off the Marauder Horsemen. Balance of Power is just pretty much dead even. Maybe a little bit in my favor, but the problem is, look at what I have. I have Longbeards, I have Miners, I have Grombrindal with 20 HP, and when he dies, it's immediately going to shift the Balance of Power. It's going to penalize my army, which isn't... I mean, Dwarves have really good leadership as is, but it's still a very, very scary situation. So both of us are basically gathering our forces right here. Sarthorael is going to be lining up to get ready for a charge, as well as these horsemen. So the horsemen, I see them on the flanks. I'm like, I'm going to get my 16 Miners with blasting charges. Hopefully we can actually blasting charge them before the fighting starts. So we get those charges, take out a couple of horsemen, Last Samurai style, and unfortunately Grombrindal does get punted into into the swamp. That's a pretty rough way to go, just getting punted by the Warp Chicken, but... Anyways, he gets up. It actually didn't do damage to kill him. It just kind of knocked him back, and he does get taken out right there. So Grombrindal falls in the swamps, but his dwarves definitely got another grudge added to the book, and they're going to be trying to settle it with the Warp Chicken. Still going to be very tough because he can cycle charge me. We were able to deal with the Marauder Horsemen. I think they actually got completely wiped out. No, they actually have a couple models left. But, I mean, the dwarves are resolute here. I mean, these Miners, Miners cost 325 gold, and in terms of their defensive capabilities and leadership, they have really good leadership and defensive stats. They're going to be fighting to the bitter end. A nice charge from my opponent there might potentially break the leadership of some of my troops. You can see the miners in the back are terrified, but I do have this full group of 75 miners, which is going to be absolute madness. So basically, he's going to be cycle charging me and pressuring me, but every time he comes in, Sarthorael does have a bit of an animation where he like dives in past like the line and gets a little bit wrapped up. So we get a couple attacks each time he goes in. You can see there we were able to do a couple hundred damage. It looks like he's just going to be going for the terror route. So he runs whenever I have troops rallying in the distance. So definitely a very solid play there. He's going to be chasing them down, making sure they don't come back, because if they can get like shoulder to shoulder with their fellow Dawi, they're going to be much stronger. So he leaps in there. He's staggered for a second from the leap. He takes about 150 damage there. So we're slowly getting there. Balance of power is in our advantage. These miners putting up a great fight. And I also do have these Longgrids in here, 28 models, who are immune to psychology. So they're really kind of anchoring me. As long as their leadership stays and they don't like kind of break off, I feel like I'll be in okay shape. Just an insanely close fight here. You can see Sarthorael still just trying to fight and just terror out these miners. Because if he could tear out the miners off, he could probably just chase them off the battlefield and then kill the Longgrids. But the Longgrids are just holding firm. They are not going quietly into that good night. The miners are going to be swarming in, and Sarthorael is down to like 400 HP. And at that point, my opponent is going to bow out. So what an incredible game. I mean, he could have probably been a little bit more degenerate, so thank you for that. I mean, he could have ran and cycle charged back and forth. I think the miners might have been able to pull it out, because every time he came in, he was taking quite a bit of damage, but either way, it was an incredibly good game. Very well played to Markovic? Markarovic? Yeah, Markarovic, I believe. My apologies if I mangled your name there, but that was a great game. So the Dwarf Warriors and the Miners did a pretty good job. Thunders kind of got shut down by the Hell Cannons, but that's to be expected. Grombrindal also pretty beastly. It almost makes me think I should have brought like Thorgrim, so he didn't get like punted around, but Gromby's Flash Bomb had some pretty good utility in the game, and he's a pretty powerful duelist and AP Lord himself, so against like Chaos Warriors, he did good. But really, I think the thing that got me into the game was the Giant Slayers just going like full on Mission Impossible, just blitzkrieging that back line and just getting all over the Hell Cannons. That was just absolutely devastating. He was able to respond, but it pulled troops away from his front line. It interrupted the Hell Cannon fire and allowed me to get some more troops back there without them just getting pounded by the Hell Cannons. But yeah, it was just a great game. It was really, really fun. So again, well played to my opponent, Markarovic. Look forward to running into again on ladder. And hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing Grandpa Gromby in action. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.